Hi, Dad. In honor of your role in my human design experiment, I am hereby dedicating my first human design video to you. And it's going to be about you, because you haven't seen your body graph, and it's a really good example for me to start with. So the reason that I am here in front of this image of these stars is that the information that is here on the body graph, it is coming from those stars, and mostly from our star, the local sun, but all of those stars out there are feeding the information that appears here. And from the few conversations that we've had about human design, that the information that appears here in this black column has to do with your birth time. And you told me that based on your mother's memory. And what you can see here is that here's the sun, here's the earth, here's the moon, planets are here. So these numbers correspond with a location in the sky when you were born. These numbers in red also correspond to locations of those astral bodies in the sky, but it was about 3 months before you were born. That was when your consciousness was imprinted into your body. Okay, so this is your personality, which is what you're conscious of, which is like what astrology talks about, but this isn't astrology because we're not only looking at this one part of you, we're looking at the combination, the quantum of your personality and what your body was imprinted. This is what you're unconscious of, but what is happening in your life. And it's what I can see in you, and you can see in my red, but you can't easily identify with your red in the same way that I can't, even though you can see it so clearly, right? So that's the basics of what's happening here. Now, these planetary bodies have numbers, right? Those locations. And those correspond with what we call the body graph. So the body graph has 9 centers. This is a center, this is a center, this is a center. And I don't know if you remember, I went to India for yoga, and maybe, you went to some yoga. I remember that now. So maybe they talked about chakras, and there were 7 chakras. Well, humans used to have 7 energy centers. The Neanderthals had 5. But now, modern humans, they have 9. We've evolved genetically and become more complicated. So these are those 9 centers. And each of these numbers that is activated, because you only have this number of activations, lives in one of those centers. So that's why these numbers are highlighted in there. So now what happens is that if centers, like here and here, if there's this center and that center and they both have an activation, then there is a channel of energy that is consistently running through there. So you happen to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 centers activated. That's neither good nor bad. Some people have no centers activated. I have less centers activated. But what it does mean is that when they're activated and defined by consistent life force, then that's a consistent thing happening in you, and you're not as prone to being conditioned by the world around you and other people in those areas. In your open areas, you are prone to being conditioned by other people and things going on around you. So you happen to have a fair amount of defined centers. And the most amazing thing that I'll tell you from the beginning is that for you, you have consistent connected centers. That means you have a single definition. Now, what does that mean? It means you're quite independent in yourself, and you really don't need relationships with other people so much. You don't perceive that you do. Doesn't mean you don't like other people, but it doesn't mean that you need them in the way that I have this sense that I'm supposed to be relating with other people, even though I'm a hermit. Another story. So let me tell you about your defined centers. This one right here is an adrenalized physical pressure, and for you it is always on. It's always on, but it's your pressure, so you can do things in your time. Now it connects up to this center, which is your vitality and life force and your ability to respond to life. Now, 70% of the humans on the planet have this center defined, which means that their life force comes in response to life coming to them, and either they have energy for something or they don't have energy for something. And you have that defined. I don't. It's one of my unique issues. So going up here, we have the next channel goes up into the center of the self and self-identity and self-love. And yours is defined. That means that you have a consistent sense of identity and direction and self-love. And you don't need to explore a lot of places because you're kind of always at home in yourself. And not only that, your sense of self connects to what you can manifest. It goes right up into this center. We call it the throat center, and it's the center of manifestation. And to have that connection from that motor and that motor up through the self into manifestation is, I've never seen it before, but I've never seen someone as solid and able to do what is him and have the power to do it. Like the way that you used to be able to wake up at 4:30 in the morning and go install a bunch of garage doors and then come home and work on the barn and then have dinner and then go build a fire. And I mean, you could just do things, and that's clear there. Now, not only that, but you also have your conceptualizing center here. Now, you're not so aware that you're consistent in your conceptualizing, but you are, and they're all connected. Yeah. So, not only that, but this center, this root center, we call it, this adrenalized physical pressure, it also feeds your immune system and your intuition in the now. And that contributes to your good health. And it also kind of helps me see why maybe when Mom was in the hospital that you struggled a lot without her there, because there's a channel called struggle here, but it's not conscious to you. So what you have that's open is the emotional center. You don't have consistent emotions, and when you're alone, you're pretty unemotional. When you're around other people that have this defined, you might magnify their emotions and think that you're pretty emotional, but we all know you're not. Okay, we're pretty sure of that. You also have the head center open. 70% of humans do. So this means that you are open to all kinds of inspiration and confusion and doubt. But it's not for you to figure that out. It's you don't have to use your mental process to run your life. And one thing I really admire about you is that you don't do that. Now, you also have this center open, and this one is about self-worth and willpower. And by having this open, like I do, it means that you are not here to prove your self-worth or your willpower. Now, 65% of humans have this open. And even though our culture says, oh, making promises and defining your worth by making promises is important, it's not something that you were designed to do and not something I was designed to do. Now, my mother, your ex-wife, does have that defined. So when we were in a family with her, her ego willpower, her proving her worth was driving our family for better and for worse, right? So One other thing I'd like to point out is these arrows. These arrows have to do with the evolution of humans from 7-centered to 9-centered. And you are set up more like a 7-centered. I'm going to say this is part of what makes you that sort of John Wayne kind of solid character, on top of this consistent definition all the way through. But also, you have a sense that you got to work to survive. And a lot of people that you don't understand, a lot of these kind of spacey new age people, or kids that don't seem to be able to do anything like you do in the woods or anything, they have more future brains and future minds. And turns out I have a future brain and a future mind. So yeah, that's one of our differences. But in spite of our differences, you've been really supportive to me in my human design adventure. So thanks for that. And I'll get into more detail another time. Love you. Thanks. Bye.